Right, and we are live. What is up, everybody? Aaron the dog here with my dogs. You might hear him in the background, but along with that, I am here with Lucky Locks MMA for our home away from home LFA breakdown here on the channel. It's definitely how sorry about that. It's definitely how I met or got introduced to Lucky Locks because when I searched LFA breakdowns, yours was the one. So now kind of joining forces here, still doing your LFA picks, of course. But yeah, we got an LFA breakdown today, 1 and 2 breakdowns today on the channel. I got the UFC breakdown show in about 4.5 hours, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the channel. Got Fernando Padilla joining us, signed to the UFC, actually had to change. He was supposed to have his fight coming up this upcoming weekend, actually, against Sean Soriano, but visa issues. So we know all about those from Vitaly Minikanov and others that I discussed with Lewis yesterday. But without further ado, how are you doing today, Lucky?
Doing great. Excited to have some LFA back. Obviously, 2 of us have cut our teeth in the LFA prediction realm, and yeah.
It's made us money at times, and it's lost us money at times.
That's the game. It's the game right there.
I think we've profited more than it's cost us. I'm just grabbing my whiteboard so I can write down my timestamps. We got a little bigger of a main card today with LFA. It's 7 fights that we will be covering. We're just covering the main card. Prelims, amateurs, we're going to leave those alone, even though lines are available on those. Yeah. I'm not that much of a degen yet, but without further ado, getting my odds all set up here, and I got them. They are very interesting. I try not to look at them too much until the show, just because I don't look at odds and then do research. I don't think that makes too much sense to do if I'm just making a little advice from home for people. But yeah, once I saw a little preview of these odds, I don't know if you've looked at them or not, but yeah, you're usually a little quicker to betting lines, so you probably have seen these.
Yeah, I have one play in.
It's tough. It's going to be hard to find plays just with how these are set up. I'm a parlay guy, so I will have my full card parlay in action. That will probably make me about plus 500 on this card with 7 fights because of how they're set up. But such is life. But without any further, I always say this. I wish I could figure out something else to say. Ado. I don't really know what ado is, to be honest. Without any further delay, we're going to jump into this card. Starting out with a very good fight at lightweight between Jacoby Jones, multiple LFA vet, made his debut with LFA, has had 2 fights so far with LFA, 2-0, taking on Nick Diaz Academy product, Logan Paxton. So if we know one thing about guys who train with the Diaz's, that I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I'm not too familiar with Nick Diaz Academy. Are you?
No, not really. I mean, other than the couple guys that we saw on the Nick Diaz card that were fighting, like Nick Macias.
Right. What was the guy?
And the other guy, the guy who got flatlined by
Sano, was it? Something Sano?
Sano or something.
Martin,
like that.
Yeah, that was brutal. I was at that fight, and my God,
you were there for that event.
Yeah, you could hear his nose break from the upper deck. It was because it's those early prelims where it's like a third of the crowd anyways, so you really can hear every shot, every step, and it was just we've had Chris Avila. I mean, we've had some, not exactly notable, but this is the LFA, so I mean, this, should be suitable spot. But you see a Tapology picture with shin guards, you're looking at a guy who's 1-0 or less, because that's an amateur bout, obviously. 3 straight wins going back to his amateur bout. Again, Nick Diaz Academy in Stockton. This is the first time I'm seeing this camp. I haven't seen Nick Diaz Academy yet, but two wins by submission, 1 by KO. Face no notable opponents. Clarence Brown went to research this guy. He was 0-2 when they fought. Look at that. First of all, his Tapology picture is like him holding his opponent, which is weird. But 2-14 is 28-year-old Clancy Brown. Lost 5 straight, just fought in September. I mean, he's going to have a job, that's for sure. But that's Logan Paxton's one pro win here. And it came in September of 2019. You can watch all his amateur bouts, all his pro bouts. Definitely likes to use his grappling to get on top. Use the ground and pound, works for submission. Seems to be a little partial towards arm locks, which is pretty typical, I think, for lower level MMA. You're not really seeing the key locks. I think he won with Clarence Brown by a straight arm bar, if I remember correctly. So, like, just kind of submissions you don't see as it gets a little higher here. Big toe Jacoby Jones. Don't know why he's called that. He has the Conor McGregor wannabe tattoo, 2-0, 25 years old for the Colorado State wrestler. That's what he is straight up. He's a wrestler, pressure wrestler, good, decent stand-up. But yeah, he wants to get in your face, shoot for a single, shoot for a double, take you down. 30-26 Caleb Hall on one of the cards. Caleb Hall, a 2-0 fighter. They went into that fight super heated, the two of them. Jacoby Jones talking shit throughout the fight too. So, I mean, props to him to be able to fight emotional and still very, very well. And Caleb Hall looked like a ready guy at Team Elevation too. So there was a very notable, I think, second win there. His first win, got an arm triangle in 2 minutes over an 0-2 guy, like I'd expect. Both his fights coming in 2021. As an amateur, went 5-1. Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to not like here. You did get submitted as an amateur. So Logan has shown he has a propensity for jiu-jitsu. Being at Nick Diaz Academy, he's definitely going to have players to roll with there. So I would think that Paxton tries to kind of out-scramble Jacoby, but I think Jacoby just kind of grounds Paxton and, ground and pound or decision finish for Jacoby. Don't really know how good his finishing capabilities are yet. He did take a decision in the last fight, but again, that's against a guy in Caleb Hall who I think will also do very well. So I think it's Jacoby all day.
Yeah. I see this one pretty similar to you. I like Jacoby Jones. Obviously, you mentioned, the collegiate wrestling background, 5-1 amateur career, 2-0 pro. And he has shown some striking. I mean, he's definitely shown a willingness to kind of go forward and go first and be the aggressor in those scenarios, training at On Point Striking in Colorado. And yeah, Paxton, Nick Diaz Academy guy, 2-0 amateur, 1-0 pro, 3 finishes. So that's, you can't really ask for much more. Good jiu-jitsu, striking, looked pretty decent. Hasn't fought since 2019. I think Jacoby Jones is going to be a tough guy to get back into the cage against.
And this is in Colorado also. It's at Vail.
Yeah, it's on his home turf. And yeah, Jacoby's been more active. He's looked good. I feel like he's the guy who's more kind of locked in on his MMA career, definitely looking through to break through to that next level. I think he has the potential to get, a ground and pound finish. I could also see a strong decision here. I just think he's going to be the more aggressive guy. I feel like he's going to be coming forward, probably be able to sprinkle in some takedowns and some control time. I have a piece of Jacoby Jones in a parlay here.
Yeah, I was going to say this on a card, especially like this is a parlayable piece to me at minus 280. I don't know. What did you get it at about that
minus
price?
275 on Vail.
Nice. Yeah, I do think this is parlayable. It is hard for me to call if it's going to be a decision or a finish, but I mean, I think if it's a decision, I think it looks a lot like the last Caleb Hall decision, which 30-26. I mean, Caleb Hall was fully confident going into that fight too. That was like they both were fully confident. And then at the end, you just see Caleb Hall chewing on his mouth guard, reacting to a 30-26 to a guy who, definitely he didn't want to lose to, let alone like that. Jacoby Jones is going to be on the Contender Series or something, I think, by 4-0, 5-0, honestly. I think if he just keeps it up. He looks the part, 25 years old, training at Elevation in Colorado, not at Team Elevation, but in Colorado. Those are all things I really like. Miz, what's good? How you doing, sir? Sorry, we're going a little bit early, but double breakdown day. Got to get it in when we can. But yeah, we are both in agreement here. I expect it to be Logan Paxton, a plus 220. I'd have a great time betting him as an underdog, but this is I just think a tough matchup, honestly. I think there's plenty of guys in LFA that Logan can compete with, but I think Jacoby is kind of one of those guys like that sticks out a little bit more, kind of like Dakota Bush when he was there, a few others where it's just like you kind of can just count them in for wins. I think that's going to be Jacoby until he moves to the next level. But That's our first fight of the night. Again, at 155, really good one. Next fight is at flyweight here between Yorovich, Acevedo, and Josiah Reyes. That's what I'm going to go with at least. Couldn't find a lot of tape on Yorovich, Acevedo, so not sure if that's how you pronounce it or not, but Josiah Reyes. I am confident on that one. This is a flyweight fight. We got a vacant flyweight title right now with Alta Marino getting picked up by the UFC. So, I mean, who knows here? But Factory X representative in Acevedo, 1-0, fighting out of Colorado here. 5'8", so he's a good tall flyweight for sure. Josiah Reyes, I believe, is 5'6". If I remember from his tape correctly, 2-0, fighting out of New Mexico. Looks like a very nice fella. Believes in peace. That's great. 6 straight wins, including the amateurs here. 2-0 as a pro. Fought last in LFA back in the beginning of 2020, January, against Ricky Escobar, a 3-3 opponent. Put him away in the first round by rear naked choke. Beat a 1-2 opponent in his debut. Few knockouts and an armbar finish as an amateur, as well as the decision. Definitely grappling first kind of fighter. Looks to implement the wrestling in most of his fights. But, I mean, he has shown the knockout capability, but it seems as a pro he goes to wrestling, at least in his first 2. Acevedo, a little harder to find tape on, but is fighting out of Colorado, 1-0. 4 straight wins going back to his amateur career. This is tough. We got 1-0 against 2-0, a Combate Global guy who fought back in July, making his debut, got a rear naked or a guillotine finish in a minute. You see several submissions again on his record. Grappler versus grappler. We're going to get a stand-up bout here. And that, I think, kind of results in it being a pretty close, tough to call one. It's hard. I'm making a little bit of a blind pick here because I don't have any tape on Acevedo that I was able to find. Maybe one of his amateur fights. He does look very tall. It just looks like Josiah likes to put on the pressure within his fights here. And if the grappling's canceled out, I just think that the guy who's able to pin this against the cage a little more, put the pressure on his opponent, wins. So whoever does that, I'll say Josiah, but I'm putting $0 on this fight. It's hard to really tell with early flyweights what you're getting.
Yeah, this one is also a pass for me. I mean, this is only really on the main card because we lost that Jalen Fuller fight. So
yep.
I wasn't really paying too much attention to this throughout the week. Acevedo, I mean, like you said, I just can't really find anything on the guy. And I don't really want to have anything on this fight as a result of that. I mean, he is training Factory X, I think. So who knows? That could be really good. And that's another reason I just don't really want anything to do with it. But, I'll give out a little lean here. I'm going to lean towards Reyes. He's had some amateur experience on LFA, pro experience on LFA. He's taken part in some of those like Jackson amateur events down in New Mexico. So, I kind of like what I see out of him. And I actually have been able to find some tape and he's looked pretty decent. So, I'll lean that way. But, this isn't a fight I want anything to do with.
No, the odds also pretty confused here. Minus 125 for Josiah, just I think out of exposure. Minus 105. Yeah. I mean, it's one of these where at least it's one of these I can't just take. Can't take the easy way out and just take a shot at the huge dog. But yep, we've all missed LFA. We're glad it's back. The Sylvier. A few weeks ago when we broke down the card, I was way wrong on that. I picked T. Cummins. Whoops. So my bad. I don't know why I just didn't think he was a real 205er. I let the weigh-ins get in the way. When he kept weighing at 200 pounds, I was like, oh, he's facing a former heavyweight. That didn't work out too well, but it happens. I remember my misses like I remember my hits. This next fight here is a very, very interesting fight. For me, at least, I'm very excited. I love Harris Enzyk. I can't say his name great, but I like watching his fights. Harris taking on Rock Smith, can say that name perfectly. Yesterday I called the Orthodox Christian necklace that Fedor wears. I just call it the Fedor necklace because someone else was wearing it. And I got a comment from someone telling me to get cultured. Like, that is an Orthodox Christian. I was like, okay, whatever. It's the Fedor necklace. We all know what it is. Anyways, Brock Smith, the Tauza out of Nebraska, 33 years old. This guy's been fun to watch his tape. It's all over the place. 175, 6'1", taking on another Factory X representative in the silverback, Harris Atoll Enzyk, out of Bosnia, now fighting out of Colorado with obviously Factory X, 25 years old, going on 26 next month. 175, 11. I'll be breaking down the Nebraskan. Brock Smith first, 4-1 for the Tauza. This guy is just, he's a wild wrestler, honestly. It's kind of sometimes fights a little bit out of control, but a lot of that probably has to do with the level of competition he's facing. Billy Martin, like guys like Justin Smith, all the classics, right? He did face Joel Bauman with LFA. I'm a huge Joel Bauman fan. Honestly, I think he's a very, very good prospect. I think he just lost his last fight out, if I'm not mistaken. Lost to Jordan Young with Bellator, and then came back with against Julian LeBlanc. That's right, yeah. But anyways, I really do like going to a decision with Bauman. I think that's a pretty impressive sign kind of his strength as a welterweight. This is at welterweight, by the way. And then came back, beat an 0-3 guy. He just hasn't faced very good competition with DCS. I don't know what DCS is. He's 1-1 with LFA, Joe Borserig. We've seen in there with a few guys as well. Beat him when he was 5-1. That's a decent win, honestly. Good wrestler. He's wild with his stand-up. His stand-up doesn't have a ton of power. He kind of strikes Clay Guida style to get into takedowns here. But I liked watching his tape. Harris, the silverback here, 3-0. Bosnia, 25 years old. Again, Factory Muay Thai. So very good camp, young in his career, and going into his third LFA bout now. 2-0 so far, via 3-0 Luis Inguez in his LFA debut on the Souza Johns card back in March of this year. Then took a rear naked choke win very quickly over a debuting Gabriel Gideon. As an amateur, finished all of his amateur bouts but two. Don't really recognize the level of opponent, but ton of fights, 11 fights as an amateur before going pro. Definitely made sure he was ready. 3-0 so far. He should be just much better technically than Brock Smith. Hasn't shown to get overwhelmed by kind of any sort of heavy grappling. He's been attempted to be grappled in a few of his fights and been pretty elusive. This is Harris for me all day. But I do like Brock. This is kind of one of those like the Contender Series that we were talking about with the Falcao fight, which I thought was a fantastic fight, by the way. I don't know why Falcao didn't get signed. I just don't understand Dana White at all. But I thought that was a great fight, and obviously I was rooting for his opponent. It's kind of similar here where I'm not going to bet Harris too heavy just because of where the odds are, but I'm going to have to take Harris here, and I would think he gets it finished.
Yeah, Harris Enzyk coming in on 11 straight wins, 8-1 amateur career, only lost his first one, 3-0 as a pro, Factory X product. And this is his third fight this year, so he's been in there a lot. He's going to be sharp. I feel like he's, very ready to get out there. He's been doing this a lot of times this year, still young, 25 years old, developing still. And yeah, he's a good striker. He was able to get a submission in his last win, but obviously the striking is the bread and butter. Brock Smith, wrestler, 4-1 record, 75% finish rate, split his LFA appearances, 1-1. Obviously the Joel Bauman loss, like you said, that's just not a bad loss to me at all. Bauman's a really good regional fighter, 4-0 on the LFA, and just won on Gamebred FC. And
he's a finisher too. I mean, he is a finisher. So yeah,
I'm a fan of Joel Bauman, so that was actually a positive, in my opinion, to take away from Smith here. And I think that if he can get Enzyk down consistently, he's a real chance to win. I just don't really know if he's going to be able to do that. Enzyk hasn't, sometimes hasn't looked as dominant as I thought he should have in some of his fights.
Yep.
but I just really don't think Smith can win on the feet. I'm not going to really – I don't think I'm going to touch Linzic at, minus 350 or wherever he's at. I'm not super enthusiastic about him, but I do think he's probably good enough to avoid getting wrestled too badly and win this one on the feet. But I think Brock Smith is live. I just don't know if I can really back him.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I'm also taking Harris here. And, I just think minus 350, it's just too much. That's what the price is at for Harris. And I think it's going to go up too. I think people recognize their name, and but I just don't feel good enough with Brock Smith to bet him at plus 240. I need that to say plus 350 or more, and then I'm thinking about it. So I think this could be an entertaining fight, especially if Harris wins. If Brock wins, it might be very, very boring, which I have no problem with when that's your route to win. No hate there. So this is kind of the classic striker grappler matchup. I think it's a good one. You definitely see some good experience for the 33-year-old, the Tauza. But we're going with the young prospect here. Moving on to the next fight. We're not back at strawweight. We're at strawweight between Paulina Macias and Marnick Man. This is 3-0 versus, I believe, 4-1. Paulina Macias last fought with the Contender Series, losing to Gloria DePaula, I believe, fighting with Elevation Fight Team, 5'4", 6'4", 33 years old, taking on the sawed-off savage Marnick Man, which is a crazy name, fighting out of Montana. And that's pretty much all the information from the particulars we have on Marnick Man. 3 straight wins, all coming by stoppage, 1 corner stoppage, 1 doctor's stoppage, which is kind of odd, and then a 45-second win. Also 4-0 as an amateur. I've not heard of one of her people that she's fought. I've not heard of Fusion Fight League. I'll be honest. I haven't heard of Ace One Fight Night or Ace One. So it's hard for me to really tell. She had 1 fight in 2019, 2 in 2020. Hasn't fought since September of 2020 when she won in the 3rd round by a doctor's stoppage. Paulina Macias, 4-1 here. As I said, last fought on the Contender Series, losing that fight. And that was in November of 2020. So they've both been off for nearly a year by the time this fight's starting. Won a split decision with LFA and a decision over a 1-1 and 2-2 opponent. And I'm pretty sure, and let's see if we can see odds or not, but if I remember, she was pretty hyped up in both of her LFA fights to really come in and look better than she's looked. Honestly, her last 2 performances have been pretty underwhelming from what I was able to watch. Gloria DePaula hasn't shown a whole lot in the UFC either, but it's just, this one is another one that's very hard for me to make a call on. I'd like to say it's Macias would be my lean, just because I would think she's going to be looking to use her judo, looking to use her takedowns and kind of control this fight, just out-technique her opponent. But the sawed-off savage, she looks strong. She looks like she hits hard. And I just don't know how. I know Paulina Macias has had a very tough last year. I did watch an interview where she kind of discussed having to leave camps, move between, thinking about leaving fighting altogether. So a lot of adversity she's come back from. I'm rooting for her. I just think, I guess I'll go with Marnick Man. I think she's going to be the more physical, strong, bigger opponent here, and just be more aggressive. Really, I just see in most of Macias's fights a desire for her to be a little more aggressive and assertive, and why she's having split decisions with a 2-2 fighter. Gloria DePaula wasn't great either in that fight. She's just better than Macias. So yeah, this isn't one I'm crazy about. I'm not betting it. I'm picking it because we're on a show here, but I'll take Marnick Man by decision, KO, maybe late, but it's like very hard to tell. I just think it would be kind of sloppy, bigger physical fighter wins.
Yeah, I see this one almost exactly the same. Macias, Elevation Fight Team, obviously, first ever loss came to Gloria DePaula in Contender Series. Before that, she was rolling along, 3-0 amateur career. She had a prestigious finish by way of opponent vomiting. So just always a fun fact I like to bring up talking about Paulina Macias. But yeah, I mean, she hasn't really fought the best competition ever, but she is training at a good camp, so she's definitely getting good rounds in at the gym. But yeah, Marnick, man, undefeated at 3-0, 7-0, including her amateur career, 3 fights, 3 finishes as a pro. Macias probably is the most polished fighter that she's faced so far. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Man just has that aggressiveness. She has that meanness about her that I think is going to be probably a big component of this fight. I think that Man can kind of put her in a similar situation that DePaula did, in the sense that Macias just doesn't cope that well with being on the back foot, being under pressure, not being in control. She doesn't like to be the nail. And Macias shot 11 takedowns against Gloria DePaula, only landed 2. Only got 58 seconds of control with them. And DePaula was able to control her without getting any takedowns of her own for over 2 minutes each round. And had pretty much 8 minutes of control in that fight. And also just, I mean, outstruck her pretty badly, significant strikes-wise well. But that's a kind of a different story. I think that, yeah, Man is just going to come forward and be a little bit too much eventually, just kind of overwhelm her. I think that she's physically strong enough, like you touched on, to have some resistance to that wrestling. I could see Macias just pure technique having some success, but I just don't know if that alone is going to win it for her. I think that Man is too mean and too aggressive. So I'm going to lean that way, but I'm not going to touch it with any money.
I was all ready to bet Man as a plus money just because I
thought she was going to be the dog too. But
I cannot believe the odds figured it out here. They're getting better because minus 130, they nailed it. They nailed it. That is perfect odds there. And I can't bet Marnick Man as a favorite. I just can't bet Marnick Man as a favorite.
I can't get to the window on that either.
Yeah, it would really be a rough loss if I had lost money on that. And so she'll be in my long shot parlay. Maybe she works her way into one more at a price of minus 130 because I just am a fucking degenerate. But no more than that sawed-off savage. No more. But hopefully it's a good fight. I just think Paulina Macias, her striking looks like it can't get respect from anybody, which it's just like that makes it very hard to kind of implement her world-class kind of technical skills, I think. So, especially against bigger opponents. So, next fight, 145, Michael Stack, one of the best names in LFA, taking on Jackson Filo. Good names here. Solid names, guys. Good job. Brazil versus America here. 27-year-old Michael Stack, 6 foot tall, now fighting out Trials, MMA, and Fitness. He's actually gone to a few different camps. Another guy I got to listen to an interview with talk about some camp changes. Used to be over at Syndicate in Vegas, and now it moves out to Colorado. But we'll get to that in one moment. Jackson Filo, Samurai, 4-2 here. Don't have an age. 5'7". Lost his last fight in September of 2020. Fights out of Team Kimura. I wonder what they're known for. In Nato, Rio Grande, Brazil. 4-2, as I said. It's Parda Nova Union, apparently. I've just never heard of Team Kimura. But lost to Daniel Argueta. Obviously, he's fighting on LFA tonight. Also fought in the contender or on the Ultimate Fighter. I always do that. Went to a decision with him with LFA last year. It was a good competitive fight. Daniel was just stronger in the wrestling game, basically, which is how Daniel wins a lot of his fights. Before that, took on a guy with 29 fights with Iron Boy MMA. I've never heard of Iron Boy, but very, impressive at 3-1 to take on a guy with 29 fights coming off of a loss, especially. Went to a decision there. Then he was off for 2 years. It seems he takes a couple years off. Was fought in 2016, 2018, 2020, and now back in 2021. Wasn't able to find too much of his tape, unfortunately. So it's just I don't really have a whole lot to go on here, other than that I do know that with his LFA 90 tape that Daniel Argueta was able to get him against the cage and able to get several takedowns and kind of cruise to a decision. And that's how Michael Stack likes to fight. 5-1, fought in January of this year. Got a win over Jordan Mappa. It wasn't an easy win at all, though. First round, actually, because it's Kansas. They had 2 of the 3 judges who actually gave it to Jordan Mappa, which I thought was bizarre scoring. I went back and literally was watching it right before we came on. I don't know how they gave it to Mappa. It was just kind of one where I mean, Stack definitely seemed to control it. He just wasn't fighting as enjoyable as Mappa, who was throwing flying knees and trying to get up. And yeah. And then second round, Stack knocked him out. I mean, Stack looks like an enormous 145er. He just is. When he fought Kai Kamaka looked like he was a weight class lower, but Kai Kamaka tore him up on the feet and ended up winning the fight, which kind of lets you know a little bit about Stack's weakness, which is the feet. I don't know a lot about Filo. There's hardly any tape I was able to watch. He's been off for over a year. If he can come and make this a stand-up bout, I think he's got a very good chance. Michael Stack seems to kind of fade a little bit when it turns into a stand-up bout, gets tired quicker. His strikes, doesn't throw a lot of combos, kind of just throws heavy straight right, straight one, straight maybe a 1-2, and shoots for takedowns. So, I mean, I would assume he can get the takedowns. The only guy who wasn't able to get the takedowns against was a former UFC fighter in Kai Kamaka. But, I mean, this is one where I just don't like not knowing what I'm betting against with a Brazilian. I have a decent camp in Nova Union. So I will go with Stack, but this is, again, one I'm definitely not confident about when I look at the odds.
Yeah, Michael Stack should have a pretty decent size advantage here. 9-1 amateur and pro combined, and like we talked about, the one loss is Kai Kamaka, so it's not really that bad of a loss. 80% finish rate, and Filo's 4-2. You mentioned the layoffs. I'm going to touch on this a little bit more. He fought lots in 2015, then one time in 2016, 2-year layoff. One time in 2018, another 2-year layoff. One time in 2020, now another. Who's more focused on their career right now, Michael Stack or this guy that's fighting like once every 2 years here? Mm-hmm. Stack has just been way more consistent, and he's also like a pretty legit and good prospect. I mean, Filo had a really tough fight last time out against Dan Argueta, who obviously we'll talk about next. But the guy's 1-2 in his last 3. To be honest, like you said, there's not that much to go off of, but from what I can see, I mean, I just don't think this guy's on Michael Stack's level. So, Michael Stack, obviously his line is pretty crazy, like -5, -6. Yeah. I was able to get him on Betway, -450. Just chucked him in a parlay with Jacoby Jones, got -150 on the two of them. And that's my only play. So I have Michael Stack here. I think more times than not, he makes this one look somewhat easy. But, there's always that risk factor. We don't know that much about Filo, but from what we do know, I just don't think he's going to have much for Michael Stack.
Yeah, for 6 foot versus 5'7", that's pretty significant there as well. I mean, his last opponent, Mappa, was not exactly a large featherweight either, and he did struggle at times in that fight. But I mean, he's pretty physically imposing, seems very focused, and I mean, his name's Michael Stack. Like, you got to stack those wins together to get to the next level, and I think he's going to do that here. So yeah, -490, get out of here. Like, there's just not a lot for me to do with that. It will be my long shot, but that's it. -490 is rough, but yeah, I do think Michael Stack and Jacoby kind of win very similarly tomorrow night, Friday night. So I don't blame you for putting that together. -150 for those two, I think, is a pretty comfortable one. Next fight is at bantamweight between Daniel Argueta and Rodney Mandala. This is a interesting one for Daniel Argueta. And then obviously Bunny is always a huge fan of when the odds approach 500 or more. She gets very pissed off. She don't like that. So she'll not be rooting for Michael Stack tomorrow night. She does not bet, just said everybody, in case anybody didn't know. But yeah, this is an interesting one. I honestly think it's Argueta and his management doing a very good job of getting him back on track after the Contender Series or the Ultimate Fighter. Do that every time. But Rodney Mandala, Hot Rod, 29 years old, 5'5", out of Merck's Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, and Fitness in Colorado Springs, Colorado, 6'3", versus the 5-0 Daniel Argueta, because Ultimate Fighter wins and losses don't count. Rodney Mandala on a 1-fight win streak, 6-3 overall. Won that fight, not actually lost in boxing, but won his last MMA fight back in September of 2019 for a 2-2 opponent. faced his notable opponent, Ricky Camp, we recognize from LFA. Very good striker, no shame in there, but did get put away in the first round there against him. Also got put away in the first round against Yusaku Nakamura. And his first win of loss of his career was against Chetan Lealoha, who we know from LFA as well. Looked really good his last time out. And that was at flyweight. So Rodney has fought at flyweight. That was in 2015. Moved up to bantamweight after that. Couple decisions, couple knockouts. Both his knockouts coming in the second round. Does have a knockout over an opponent with 24 wins. So stacked together a few good experience losses, if you can call them that, in Chetan Lealoha and Ricky Camp particularly. But yeah, been put away twice. Daniel Argueta, on the other hand, definitely has some good power to him. I believe he was the first or second pick on the Ultimate Fighter, which isn't a huge deal. But Jackson Winklejohn, known for having Mexican judo, which is an interesting qualification on the Ultimate Fighter, ended up losing to eventual winner Ricky Turcios. Really, it was a good fight too. There's no shame in that. Has had good level of competition. Jackson Filo, as we just pointed out last time out, we'll find out how good he is, but has a win over a 3-0 Rodney Davila as well. Rear naked choke wins in 3 of 4. Finish by knockout over Max Rojas. This will be his third LFA fight. It's been since May. He hasn't fought since May. I think that he's ready to get back in there. He didn't take a whole lot of damage against the eventual champion, who honestly, Turcios put much more damage on all the rest of his opponents. I think that's kind of fight that coming off that is only going to help him with his confidence and everything. It's Argueta all day here for me. And I'll say Argueta gets the finish by KO.
Yeah, Dan Argueta, Jackson Wink product, Ultimate Fighter contestant. One loss for Ricky Turcios, went on to win the show, but maintains his undefeated official record. And he's still a really good prospect, 80% finish rate, 3 rear naked chokes on his resume, good grappler, good wrestler. And if he can just get this down consistently, I think it's going to look pretty easy for him. Mandala, 6-3, lost to Ricky Camp, Chetan Lealoha. Not bad losses, just not any really great wins.
Right.
He hasn't lost since 2019, fought 4 times that year, went 2-2. Since then,
going into boxing.
Yeah, had a boxing match, was defeated there. He's a good striker, hits hard. He should be game for this fight. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I just don't think he has the goods to beat Dan Argueta. You pretty much said it. He needs this one to stay on the feet, or he's just pretty much cooked in this spot.
Yeah, and this is another one where we got -400. I'm frankly, a little bit surprised that it's that close, but that's fine with me. -400 is still big. What you say?
I think the line's almost close to accurate. I probably have him like -350.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I just am expecting the worst, especially against the former flyweight here. But either way, Argueta, -400 actually is pretty accurate. I would feel more comfortable putting Argueta in with Jacoby Jones. Probably would also just throw in Harris at -350. Just do a little trifecta there. Add a fourth with Michael Stack, and then probably going to add the main event favorite as well here. I'll be honest. I like him quite a bit, so he would be my 5th. But I would add Michael Stack last of those 5 if I was kind of Russian nesting doll it. But I feel pretty good about Argueta here. I didn't think he looked terrible on the show at all. You can only judge these guys so much on the show. It's not kind of a full picture of how a lot of these guys end up being. But yeah, we're both on Argueta here for the co-main event. Hopefully it's a good fight. Always hope they're good, obviously. And then we're on to the main event here. This is at 185, not for a title, but it is probably to figure out who's next in fighting for the vacant LFA middleweight title, if I had to guess. Josh Fremd taking on Renato Valente. Obviously, Fremd maybe is a little bit upset right now for several reasons. Obviously, Gregory Rodriguez knocked him out in the middleweight Grand Prix. Then got a UFC fight 2 weeks later against Dusko Todorovic, which I think Josh Fremd also would have done to Dusko what Gregory did to Dusko. So it's like a little bit of what could have been there for him. And now he goes from Jamie Murray, who I did pick. I admit, way wrong on that. My bad. I bet him as well. And, that's who Fremd could have been fighting. I think Fremd very much would have liked to be taking that fight. Also, I wish I would have kind of thought more about how Murray was training for a 185 fight and then decided to take a short notice 205 fight. All things that hindsight's 2020, as they say. But Renato Valente, I think, is a much more difficult opponent than Jamie Murray. So short notice and the opponent change and so a lot of, I think, mental obstacles here for Josh that's going to show me quite a bit about kind of what the 27-year-old's made of here. 6'4", 76.5-inch reach. Fighting out in Colorado, moved out there, is fully committed, originally from Pittsburgh. Again, taking on Renato Valente here, 29 years old, 185er, 6 foot, 74-inch reach, so nearly identical. Fighting a top brother. Interesting. It's a Mexican gym, I believe. Renato, solid Brazilian here, beat Chimweke Anyujeka, who is a 7-0 opponent there. I remember I bet Renato in that spot. Renato was the underdog as well. It was a very close fight, really competitive. But I think that Renato learned quite a bit from his loss to Mark Martin. He seemed to implement a lot of the wrestling and grappling he got used against him. Moved up to 185 and looked like he was a little bit undersized, I'll be honest, for the division. Got away with it in his last one, but I think Josh Fremd, pretty massive middleweight. At times I kind of forget he's a middleweight and not a light heavyweight. Just very, very big, hits really hard. Basically, I think that he took enough time off from the Gregory Rodriguez fight. I did have Gregory Rodriguez going into that fight, but I thought that Fremd was going to give it a much better go of it. I think he's much better than he put on that night. I think he comes out here pretty hungry, and I think he puts away Renato Valente, honestly. Renato Valente is a big welterweight and a small middleweight. So I just think that Fremd gets back on track here, gets a finish, gets into another position where he's fighting for a middleweight title and a shot to get to the next level. I just think it got slowed up a little bit against Gregory Rodriguez. Gregory Rodriguez getting ready to fight this weekend again. So I know he's a lot of people's favorite dog on the card this weekend. But yeah, Josh Fremd, 7-2, 6'4", wrestled at Slippery Rock University. Good for him. 76.5-inch reach. Yeah, I like how he looked against Bruno Oliveira. He's got a lot of first-round finishes in his career, but he's faced a good level of competition basically since Travis Davis on. I think all that adds up to a win for Fremd. I like him quite a bit here. The odds are a little bit steep, but I also think accurate.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about Josh Fremd. The size, like you mentioned, training at Factory X now, 86% finish rate, opened up his LFA career with 3 straight round 1 knockouts, lengthy amateur career as well. Nice to get that experience under your belt. And he was very successful in that sphere too. He has the collegiate wrestling experience to supplement the good striking. And, like you said, I honestly believe he could be a UFC 185er right now. He probably would have been if he beat Gregory Rodriguez in his last bout. That would have been him getting that call. And I think that was just a case of 2 prospects that are both ready for the next level that just kind of had the misfortune of having to face each other, and only one of them is obviously going to get that shot. And I think we're going to see Josh Fremd in a major organization sooner rather than later. This is a big fight for him to get back on track. Like you said, I think the way you characterize this fight, whoever wins this one is going to get a shot for the vacant title. I think that's exactly right. Renato Valente, I honestly like him. He's a lot better than 8-4 suggests. I think he's probably one of the best 8-4 fighters out there. He was defeated by Naib Lopez. That guy's 11-0 now. Obviously lost to Mark Martin of the MMA Lab, and I had money on Mark Martin there. That fight was a lot closer than I thought it was.
Yes, it was.
Valente definitely made me sweat there. And he picked up the win as the underdog, which you had him on. Chukwuemeka. I didn't bet that one just because I just had a feeling that Renato Valente might just tough it out.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, he did. He hits hard. He's aggressive. He has solid striking. And I think he's going to be at a speed disadvantage here. I think that Valente's a guy. He's good. He can give anyone some trouble in the regional scene. He's always won. I just think Fremd is on that level above where Valente is just not going to be able to get it done. So I see Fremd being a little sharper, a little quicker, land better shots, and just overall the better fighter. So, yeah, I feel good about Josh Fremd in this main event.
Yeah, it's just after the first round I get nervous for sure because Fremd does change quite a bit. That first round Fremd is not what you see the whole fight. That's why you've seen a couple splits on his record. The Travis Davis fight is one that you go back to and you can see Valente kind of trying to push the pace a little in that way, not having to cut as much weight, not even close to as much weight, also being former welterweight, and I think making 185 much more comfortably. Valente needs to make it ugly and push the pace, but I think if he doesn't, it's a long night. Fremd is a minus 335, 350 favorite I'm finding. Like I said, the five I would throw together, they're all favorites. So, but I put Jacoby Jones in there with Argueta to start out with. Then I would add, I'd add Fremd. I'd add Harris and then Fremd, just because I do think Valente can kind of get a decision if he pushes this. I just don't think he gets out of the first. And then I would end up with Michael Stack. So that would be kind of my plays there. There's not a lot of straight up betting to do unless I decide to bet Marnick man. But so far that's not on the tape here, but I believe we agree on all 7 of the bouts tonight. Just real quick going through them. We got Jacoby Jones. We both have Josiah Reyes, albeit we're not super confident in that one. Harris, we got Harris. We're both on Marnick man. Both got Michael Stack, Argueta, and Fremd. So those are our 7 picks for the main card. This is a little more of a traditional throwback LFA, I think. They've been doing a little bit better of making them competitive. And this week, we got kind of a little traditional Russian Bellator card. We got the traditional LFA card. And I don't know what the hell the UFC card is, frankly. The UFC card's all over the place with what's going on in the main event. It's now a 195 catchweight bout.
Yeah, think we'll see.
Right. If you're betting and super confident on Paul Acosta, get some help because I just don't know how you can be confident.
I'm on the other side, so
I don't know, and I have not talked to a person who is on Paul Acosta's side, which is why I'm surprised that Vittori's still at minus 160. Somebody out there is on Acosta's side. They're just not talking about it. But should be an interesting weekend. It's always great to have an LFA Bellator UFC weekend as well as football. I mean, it's a good time for the sports. Unfortunately, the Pistons are back and they look like the Pistons. It's been a long decade. They are my favorite team and it's brutal. So luckily I got 3 teams in NBA wins pool to root for, but that's enough for the day. The dogs are all awaking here, as everybody can hear, and that is my cue. They're my producers giving me the cut sign. Check out Lucky Locks over on his channel, Lucky Locks MMA. All picks on just all sorts of organizations. Don't look for the UFC picks there because everybody else has got them. But he's got you covered on all the other organizations. And I always appreciate having you on, Lucky. We'll be back on Tuesday for the Contender Series. Obviously, we got a couple more weeks left of that. We continue to kill it there 4 or 5 this past week. And if we just didn't take the biggest dog of the season, we would have went 5-5. So, hero ball happens. But honestly, appreciate it. Appreciate Miz, Bunny, everybody in the comments section. We'll be back in about 4 hours with the UFC show. Fernando Padilla will be joining Bunny and I on the show, as well as maybe another special guest, maybe somebody who has hosted a few UFC shows with me, maybe who just had a child, a certain Pooh Bear perhaps. So check it out tonight. It should be a good show. 7 o'clock, we're starting in 4 hours. But thank you all for joining us. Again, Lucky Locks MMA picks on YouTube. Give him a sub. He's awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night or a great day, whatever time of day it is, and appreciate you all.